It's time to take your business to the next level, the boss level. These are the premier business owner strategies and successes being utilized by the industry's top talent today. Rock your business like a boss, a VO boss. Now let's welcome your host, Ann Ganguza.
Hey everyone, welcome to the VO Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Ann Ganguza, along with special guest co-host all the way from New Zealand, Jennie Stenhouse. Hey Jennie, how are you?
Oh, I'm good today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Jennie, I don't even know what time is it over there, but it's tomorrow actually for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm talking to you from the future, the morning.
That's right. I love it. I love it. For you bosses who are just joining us that are not aware, Jennie is an amazing powerhouse of talent. She's an accomplished voice developer who has worked on voice experiences for Alexa, for Samsung Bixby. She's a developer advocate at Neosensory, and she's also the COO of Women in Voice. And I love this. When I visited the webpage, your mission is to amplify, celebrate, and empower women. I already love that. And minority genders in the voice industry. What a beautiful mission statement. I'd love to talk to you a little bit about Women in Voice, because that just appeals to me. I'm a woman and I'm in voice. So tell us about your organization.
Sure, of course. And so Women in Voice is a really interesting community to be a part of, because when people initially hear it, they're like, oh, it's either just the voice industry, or it's just the tech voice industry, or it's the voiceover industry. Or in fact, when we first started, there's a whole lot of singing groups that are called like Women in Voice.
Oh, yeah.
And so we had to, and the interesting thing about it is that I think that it sort of encompasses all of those things. So Women in Voice was founded in 2018 by Joan Bajorek. She had gone to Voice Summit, which is a big sort of conference when we're allowed to meet in person, that brings together all sorts of people from the voice industry. And she sort of looked around and noticed, she was like, there is not a lot of women here. There is a lot of guys. And so after the summit, and the summit is amazing. It's really good. Mm-hmm. After the summit, she sort of was like, oh, maybe I should do something about it. And I think this is a very important thing. She did something about it instead of just being like, oh, it's a small step between I should and I did, but it's a very, very important thing. And I mean, that small decision by her has made such a difference to so many women all over the world.
Wow.
So, and she didn't start huge. She started small. She just wrote a message on Twitter and was like, hey, is there any other women who would be interested in doing this? And she got replies. And from that, it's built from one chapter to we've got 18 chapters with 2 pending all around the world, from Russia to Brazil.
That's amazing.
And it's just, it's so exciting and such a huge, it is so cool. I'm blown away by it every time I get to speak about it. And it's from, there's developers like me, there's designers, there's business strategists, there's marketers, there's recruiters, there's voiceover artists, there are scientists working on the complex problems of automatic speech recognition and speech generation, and AI and machine learning people, and everything you can possibly think of as a part of this huge thing that is becoming the voice industry. We have people who represent those roles in our groups. And also the thing that I'm really excited about is people from a junior level, or people who are just like, this voice industry thing looks interesting, to people who have been in the voice industry since there were IVR, which is that old school thing where you used to pick up the phone and it would be like, press 1 to do this. Yeah. So
I do that. I do that.
Yeah. Yep. That might be some of your voices out there in those. Yeah. And so I think that it's such an exciting community to be a part of. And has this amazing thing which isn't common to many other sort of women in groups, in that it's such a broad collection of people and from such diverse backgrounds. And one thing I really believe in is that if you get a bunch of people from different backgrounds into a room who are going to make decisions, those decisions will be better than a decision made by a homogenous group.
Because I love that.
Yeah, I think it's funny how it makes such a huge difference to the end result. If you have more different minds and their different thought processes or different journeys that they've been on come to the table to make decisions, they always end out better. It's like certain magic happens there. And those boundaries are always more pushed when you have, it helps when people disagree with you, because then you have to form your ideas or your argument better, right? Like if everyone's just like, oh yeah, great idea, nothing really gets defined or sorted out. So you can just sort of have some foggy thing in mind and not have to refine it to convince someone. So yeah, I think it's really important. I think it's an important community to have out there, and it's just constantly growing. And we do all sorts of different initiatives to help women and, like you say, empower, celebrate, and amplify. So we have a really cool mentorship program, and mentorship is like a whole nother thing I could spend ages talking about, because I think it's so important, and it used to be more explicit than it is now, and more like the apprenticeship model was much more common, without it being exploitive, because I truly believe that mentorship is like beneficial to both parties when done well. So I think that's a really exciting initiative. We have a lot of content production happening for education, and of course in the mentorship group as well. We've got some interesting things like hackathons for next year, which would be an amazing place for voiceover artists to get involved, because it's like a small time commitment. Yeah, I think that's really exciting. So I'll keep you updated about the dates for those.
Absolutely. Yes, please. I would love to hear about that. And I want to know, can any women, any woman join this?
So currently membership is just free. We're working through revenue streams, because of course we're a non-profit, and there has to be money coming in to make things go out. Essentially, that's how the equation works.
Sure.
I think in most people's lives, it doesn't matter what you're doing. And one of our sort of key ideas is that we don't become beholden to a single, like a Google or an Amazon or a Facebook. We are happy to work with them, but we don't want to work only with them, because independence is really important, especially across all our chapters and our international chapters. And of course, there's a bunch in the US as well. I feel like they're the heartbeat of the community, because there's nothing more amazing than meeting with someone like, so I get to speak to people in Japan, or one of the people I work most closely with is in Germany. And so there's these relations that span the globe that have been built out of women in voice. So if you... it's so cool.
I can imagine the Zoom call. I can imagine a Zoom call with all of your representatives and chapters. That would be something.
Yeah, it's so cool. We have them monthly, and they're called our Chapter Connect calls, and they're kind of like free for all. So if you join a chapter, and you get to sort of just talk about whatever's bothering you, which is quite nice, and like some amazing solutions have come up out of that, because sharing common problems helps decide what to do, or different approaches. And like the way someone approaches a problem in Germany differs completely from how they approach it in New Zealand. But then, like, if I apply the German way to the New Zealand way, maybe that will work. And it's so good learning from other people's experiences. And back to your question about who's it for. Well, if you feel like it's a place you belong, then you're in the right place. We don't do anything like having to check. I don't even know how you'd go about it in an ethical way. If you identify as female, or you feel that it's a space for you, then it is. You don't have to prove anything to us. We do have codes of conduct, and we're definitely not afraid of kicking out trolls, because we really like our spaces to be safe. But I to make progress with inequalities between women and men, we need to work together. And so it's also not like a no men allowed, get out thing. We have many events that are for both men and women, or for everyone, because you can't create equality by creating segregation. So,
okay. Yep.
So I think that's also really important. There's a lot of work to be done with allies. And we love allies. It's how we'll make great change.
Sure. absolutely. So then you have monthly chapter meetings, and then what about as an organization where you meet? I mean, because everybody's in different time zones, I can't imagine that.
Yeah, it's quite complex.
Yeah.
I usually have to get up horribly early in the morning, but it's better in the winter, I think, because of the daylight savings time. So it's quite cool at the moment. I don't have to get up like 5 a.m. In my winter, it's like 5 a.m. calls. I'm like, oh, this is not cool. But I do it because I love it, so it's okay. But so there's lots, like I would definitely say stay tuned to what's happening in 2021. We have a constant Slack group that
nice.
people can sign up for, and voiceover artists are definitely welcome. So there's an Australia and New Zealand chapter, and Leslie Chambers is one of our founders of that chapter, and she's a voiceover artist and runs a voice agency as well. And I can think of Miranda Botha, who is in South Africa, also a voiceover artist, and maybe she'll sort out a chapter over there too soon. So there's lots of voiceover artists already here, but I'd be glad to have more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And like I say, I think that there might be this, like the fear of voice assistants like encroaching on or taking voices or taking work, for example. I think that it just might be like if you get involved at the right time, the right space, you might be underestimating the wealth of knowledge that you can bring to this space and to this industry to make better experiences overall.
Yeah, I was going to say, and in our last podcast, you had mentioned, I was talking about the fear that a lot of voice artists have towards other areas in the voice industry because it might be taking our jobs away. You did such a great job of talking about the benefits and how we might be able to embrace it and really work together to offer our voices as a service and to help people and to really grow this industry. And especially in women in voice, I think it's a great opportunity for us as talent to learn about what's going on because voice is happening with or without voice artists. The voice development, it is happening. Alexa is continuing to grow and voice technology is continuing to grow. And I think the best way that we can help serve that industry is to really educate ourselves as much as we possibly can and see how we can contribute because technology's not going to stop for us. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, I think you're perfect. Yeah, I totally agree that it's that idea that it's reaching such momentum, and it's also such a logical step once the technology was able to catch up. Like, of course, this isn't a new idea. We've seen it throughout history that people want to talk to the things they control.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think it's just a matter of now that the technology is sort of caught up, that it's become possible to achieve what was thought about long ago. And I think there's no really such thing as like a brand new idea. It's all about execution and implementation.
Oh, sure. And improvement.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And I always try to think about, my time, when I was in tech, I was on tech staff at a school, and we had an entire special services campus, a couple of them, that really relied on speech to text technology. And I think that there's a lot of voice artists out there that tend to forget these things, that it is inherently helpful and needed and necessary for technology to be developed. Because I remember the trials and tribulations of getting speech to text education to work. And it was something that was just very sad to see if people were resisting it, because this was so very beneficial to educating students who may not be able to read or, and it just was incredible the types of things that could be done. And I know that the technology has just improved over the years and can be still improved. I have a really close friend of mine who is a voice artist, and she is blind, and she relies heavily on, when she's navigating the web, her text-to-speech device that helps her to navigate and get around the web and do her job and edit, her voiceover and and read auditions. And it's incredible what it can do to help people. And I think that we just need to remember that instead of being so scared that it's going to take our jobs away. Because honestly, as we mentioned before, the human aspect isn't quite there yet. And I imagine it might take some time. And even if it doesn't, we have to figure out how we can become a part of this to move forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the core thing to remember is knowledge is power, right? So if you know more about the industry and the way that you can fit into it, your role might adjust. I think that
absolutely.
There's probably, like, I would never say, oh, yeah, in 10 years' time, you can do voiceover the way that you're doing voiceover now. Mm-hmm. It will change. Mm-hmm. And being able to change and adapt to a new situation, I mean, I think that's what makes humans overall as successful as a species, is our ability to adapt. So
adapt and change. Yep, absolutely. And businesses too, to evolve and change, right? For the times, I mean, even during this pandemic, right? There have been businesses who have had to evolve and, pivot. I think as voice talent, we need to pivot. We need to educate ourselves about this. And I think Women in Voice, the organization, if we can become a part of it, I mean, that would be amazing. I mean, I would love to be able to talk to other women around the world and get their experiences. I mean, what a great experience that is, and what a great learning experience that is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, for a voice artist example, we just definitely had one of the a question come up in Slack about, like, what are the legal implications of using my voice in an Alexa skill, and how can I protect myself that it's only used in this specific skill, and like how much do I charge them? Those questions are getting answered by our community, and so instead of having to try and figure that out yourself, you can come...
Which we are. Yeah. We are trying to do that. And that's true in just about every forum. It's like, what do I even charge? And how do I find out where my voice is being used? I mean, you'd briefly spoken about a technology that might be able to help us do that. Voice recognition, to see if it's being used in other places. And how would you charge?
Yeah, I think it's a complex question, and like your models, your previous models might not be applicable, but then there might be some very lucrative ways to do it. Like, imagine if you had royalties for every time it's used instead of a straight.
Well, that would be lovely. Jenny, I'd like to ask you in regards to that, like, what I think with any business, right, the product that you sell, and with us, it's our voice. There is, in terms of pricing, it's all about what the market will pay. And so in this new kind of era of AI and tech, those types of voices for Alexa or Bixby or whatever device, is there a value put on the human voice? In terms of, because I think as a community, there's a lot of people out there that don't think that most people put a value on our voice as it is. And we would just be in the studio recording thousands of words and thousands of phrases and not getting paid, if it's going to be used globally all around the world. I mean, it's such a tough question to answer. And I know I just put you on the spot, but what do you think, Jenny?
Well, I do think that it is it's complex, but I think it's changing. So when voice assistants sort of opened up to all the developers, there are literally probably like in the thousands of like quiz games, and it actually became a bit of a running joke in the community, in the voice developers community, of like, oh, let's just make another quiz game, because it was really easy to do. It went through certification easily. And then no one would use it. Like, that's the thing. Sure, there's 100,000 skills in the Amazon Alexa skill store, but I think maybe the usage of them is probably in the top 10%. And I would put money on that those top 10%, quite a few of them are using voiceover artists, because it changes the quality of the experience so much. And like I mentioned before...
It's nice to hear you say that.
Yeah. Oh, good. The tools that developers have for manipulating voices, like Alexa's own voice or the voice that are available through the Alexa development platform, they're not brilliant. They're a bit rudimentary. And I'm not going to say that they're not going to change. And I know that they will definitely improve, but it's hard work to make them anywhere close to being as engaging as a human voice. So I think there's definitely still a place for, and I think there's so much investment in this, like trying to make synthetic voices sound more human, that's also a place for voiceover artists to be involved. They can't do it without you at the moment. So there's so much to be added by using a human voice, and heaps of the top agencies are definitely turning towards voiceover artists. They've realised that Alexa, the inborn voices aren't getting them the results that they need, while a human voice can. And yeah, just the level of engagement with a human voice as opposed to a synthetic voice, it's just no competition at the moment.
What about the use of the voice? Like if we were to record, I guess I'm just curious, certain words and phrases that would then be strung together to devise an answer. And like how does that play into, I mean, that's like multiple usage, right? You might be using the same word over and over again in a response or, in a particular instance. And so how would that, does that increase the value of the, if I say the word, women, and then it's used, 10 times within a paragraph, do I get do I get reimbursed for that? Or is it, is there something, do you feel that the community, the developers out there are feeling that there is value, or the companies that are writing these, putting these games and these apps together, do you feel that there is a semblance of value put on a human voice?
Yeah, it becomes quite interesting because if you start doing that, like splitting of words, there are companies that specifically clone voices. So your voice becomes a mixture of your real voice and algorithm. So you're sort of like standing over that line between synthetic and real, which is interesting. And I must say, I haven't done a lot of research into that, but they're very costly clone voices, and so you probably run into people who are doing whole run answers instead. So instead of like sense. Chopping up the words, they're doing
a whole sentence and then getting paid for that.
Yeah, a whole sentence.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and multiple sentences, so with slight variation. Because one of the really engaging things about a voice experience is instead of every time I open the voice experience, it says, "Oh, hello, Jenny, how are you?" And the next time I might say, "Oh, hi, what's up?" Like that variance is really important in an engaging experience.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And we've actually got something coming up, bosses, that Jenny and I will be discussing that really has something in there for voice talents that utilizes multiple responses to make it as interactive as possible. And I'm really excited about it. And I know Jenny is too. Yeah. So we'll be talking about that in a future episode. So good talk. Jenny, I gave you some really difficult questions there. So I appreciate your answers. And I think you did a great job in terms of allaying any fears. I hope so, bosses. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm bringing Jenny on here, to really challenge her and to find out what is this other voice industry all about, and are we going to be able to play, what kind of a part are we going to play in that? And I hope that it's going to be a very valuable one. And it's not necessarily something I feel like, oh, we have to make a boat ton of money, but I feel like we just want to be valued, as artists, and we want our voice to have value. So thank you so much, Jenny, for this amazing episode. And I'm super excited to talk to you again about more fun voice tech stuff. I'd like to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, IPDTL, that allows me to connect with Jenny and chat like a boss. You too can find out more at ipdtl.com. You guys have an amazing week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Join us next week for another edition of VO Boss with your host, Ann Ganguza. And take your business to the next level. Sign up for our mailing list at voboss.com and receive exclusive content, industry revolutionizing tips and strategies, and new ways to rock your business like a boss. Redistribution with permission, coast-to-coast connectivity via IPDTL.